As people cross the age of 70, something unusual begins to happen inside the world of modern medicine. Something that most seniors never question, never investigate, and never imagine could be placing their well-being at risk. Because the medical world has trained generations to believe that more tests mean more safety, more scans mean more early detection, and more checkups mean more protection. Yet the hidden reality buried deep inside thousands of clinical studies and quietly discussed among longevity researchers, geriatric specialists, and preventive care analysts reveals a disturbing truth. Many commonly recommended health checkups can do more harm than good in older adults, especially those entering what doctors call the fragile decade, a period marked by natural changes in bone density, brain structure, cardiac flexibility, immune responsiveness, and metabolic rhythm. Changes that are not diseases, but natural biological transitions. And when these transitions are misread as medical abnormalities, seniors are pushed into procedures, drugs, and interventions that not only fail to improve lifespan or quality of life, but may actually trigger complications such as bleeding, infections, kidney injury, lung collapse, dangerous cognitive decline, and in some cases even contribute to cancer formation itself. And while millions of seniors walk into hospitals believing routine screening ensures safety, the truth, supported by new data showing that nearly 37% of all medical testing in older adults leads to unnecessary follow-ups, and nearly all unnecessary follow-ups produce lifelong side effects, exposes a system where fear, not benefit, drives decisions, and this becomes especially alarming when studies show that 99% of people above 70 have no clue they are being overdosed, overscanned, overdiagnosed, and overtreated, especially when it comes to tests like DEXA scans, stress tests, brain MRIs, colonoscopies, and full-body CT scans, tests that are promoted as protective yet carry risks that quietly increase with age, physiological sensitivity, medication load, bone fragility, and the natural decline in the body's ability to clear toxins, sedation drugs, contrast dyes, and radiation exposure. And this becomes even more terrifying when you learn that the single most dangerous test on this list, one that many seniors undergo believing it will catch cancer early, is responsible for up to 5% of all cancers diagnosed in the United States, a number equal to cancers associated with daily alcohol consumption. And despite this, clinics still offer it as a premium preventive package, never highlighting the risks, always promoting the illusion of early detection. And seniors continue to sign up, unknowingly stepping into the cycle of fear, radiation, follow-ups, invasive biopsies, and surgeries that were never needed. And to understand how harmful this can be, we must begin with the fifth test, the seemingly harmless bone density scan, known as the DEXA scan, which older adults are told will reveal osteoporosis, but often ends up labeling natural aging as disease, pushing seniors into bisphosphonate medications that can trigger jaw necrosis, brittle bone fractures, swallowing difficulties, reflux, stomach lining inflammation, and esophageal irritation, all for a condition that often requires nothing more than weight-bearing exercise, vitamin D optimization, calcium-rich nutrition, protein intake, balanced training, sunlight exposure, and functional movement routines that outperform medications in most adults 70 and above, as proven by multiple studies, including a 2022 osteoporosis report showing lifestyle interventions reduce fracture risk by over 20%, far higher than the 0.3% reduction offered by medications in mild cases. Yet fear of frailty drives millions to unnecessary prescriptions, just like fear of memory loss drives millions toward unnecessary brain MRIs, scans that reveal age-related white matter spots and mild shrinkage, which are natural in the aging brain, but often misinterpreted as early dementia, causing panic, anxiety, over-referrals, spinal taps, biopsies, and even risky neurosurgical exploration that does nothing to improve memory, because the issue was never a disease to begin with, but rather dehydration, sleep disruption, poor nutrition, stress, medication side effects, low B12 levels, sensory decline, or emotional burnout, factors that improve dramatically with basic interventions rather than brain imaging. Yet seniors are still routed through MRI machines every day, and it does not stop there, because cardiac stress tests, incredibly common in older adults experiencing normal age-related fatigue, mislead doctors into performing unnecessary stent placements and angiograms with false positive rates as high as 40% in people above 70, pushing seniors into contrast eye exposure, bleeding risk, kidney strain, hospital stays, and cardiac complications that offer no improvement in lifespan or quality of life for those without true symptoms. A fact confirmed by JAMA cardiology studies showing that over 50% of stents placed after stress tests offer zero measurable benefit. And if that wasn't concerning enough, colonoscopies, long considered a gold standard, carry rising risks after 70 due to dehydration from PrEP, sedation-related cognitive disturbances, perforation risks, and bleeding. And, shockingly, for every 1,000 procedures in seniors above 75, only 2 lives are saved while more than 20 experience severe harm. A 10-to-1 risk ratio few seniors ever hear about. And despite these dangers, the most alarming test of all remains the full-body CT scan, marketed as a luxury early detection tool, yet exposing patients to radiation levels equal to hundreds of chest X-rays and increasing lifetime cancer risk dramatically in older adults whose cells are more sensitive to ionizing exposure. While the harmless nodules and cysts revealed by these scans, normal signs of aging, lead to more scans, then biopsies, then surgeries, creating a medical domino effect that steals mobility, independence, finances, emotional stability, and in some cases survival itself. And still, seniors continue to believe these tests are essential, unaware that true preventive medicine after 70 is rooted not in aggressive scanning, but in consistent movement, balanced nutrition, community engagement, stress reduction, sleep quality, sunlight exposure, hydration, strength training, flexibility routines, microbiome support, cardiovascular pacing, immune regulation, and meaningful daily habits that enhance longevity far more than any radiation-based scan. And yet this truth remains buried beneath decades of marketing, institutional inertia, and the widespread misconception that more medical care equals better outcomes, when in fact research increasingly shows the opposite for older adults, highlighting that minimal intervention, strategic screening, and functional lifestyle changes produce the longest, healthiest lives, and this is why seniors must rethink the role of testing after 70, question whether each test improves the likelihood of better outcomes, and always ask the critical question: if this test finds something, what happens next? Because if the answer involves invasive procedures, sedation, radiation, or lifelong medication with minimal benefit, then stepping back may be the most powerful form of self-protection, especially in a medical climate where overtreatment is more common than undertreatment in seniors, and understanding this truth transforms aging not into a fearful medical journey, but into a confident, informed, empowered phase of life where people choose wisely, live intentionally, maintain independence, and focus on what truly extends lifespan and health span: strength, clarity, nutrition, purpose, movement, and balanced, thoughtful medical care rather than fear-driven intervention. And this understanding becomes even more essential when we examine the broader landscape of senior health, because the reality is that the human body at 70, 80, and beyond operates under an entirely different physiological blueprint than the body of 40 or 50, meaning tests that were once harmless or beneficial start producing misleading results due to natural age shifts in hormones, sodium regulation, hydration patterns, blood viscosity, vascular elasticity, immune cell turnover, inflammation markers, and even how the liver processes medications or how kidneys filter contrast dyes. And when these natural changes collide with rigid, outdated screening guidelines built for younger adults, the result can be catastrophic, trapping seniors inside a system that misinterprets normal aging as disease and mistakes disease markers for emergencies, creating a perfect storm of overtreatment, misdiagnosis, and panic-driven decision-making, all while the hidden drivers of real longevity, like mitochondrial resilience, mobility, sleep depth, emotional stability, muscle mass maintenance, metabolic balance, gut microbiome health, and social engagement, receive almost no attention, even though they contribute more to life expectancy than any scan or test ever could. And modern research proves this again and again, including a groundbreaking study from the European Journal of Healthy Aging showing that muscle strength, flexibility, and daily movement patterns predict mortality in seniors more accurately than blood tests, MRIs, colonoscopies, and CT scans combined, highlighting the uncomfortable truth that the medical system has been prioritizing the wrong metrics for decades, often focusing on early detection instead of meaningful prevention, and seniors pay the price for this confusion through unnecessary stress, financial strain, emotional upheaval, and lost independence, especially when false alarms push them into procedures that weaken physical stability, drain energy reserves, and slow recovery capacity, which already declines naturally with age and should be protected at all costs. And this pattern can be seen everywhere in the healthcare system where seniors interact, from urgent care clinics that rush to order tests instead of conducting thorough symptom evaluations, to private diagnostic centers that market full-body scans as elite preventive tools, to insurance-driven guidelines that reward more testing rather than better outcomes, creating a system where seniors become targets of unnecessary intervention rather than recipients of thoughtful, personalized, age-appropriate care. And this is why understanding the 5 most harmful checkups becomes a form of self-defense, not against disease, but against overdiagnosis, medical anxiety, and high-risk interventions disguised as routine care, especially when statistics reveal that up to 30% of all surgeries performed on adults over 75 were triggered by follow-ups from questionable screening, not by symptoms, not by actual health decline, but by incidental findings, tiny nodules, benign cysts, low-risk polyps, and mild vascular changes that pose no threat to life, yet lead to fear-based medical cascades. And this fear is powerful enough to impair sleep, reduce appetite, raise blood pressure, increase cortisol levels, reduce immune strength, and even speed up cognitive decline, showing that unnecessary testing harms seniors both physically and psychologically, while the solution, balanced, evidence-based, age-adjusted testing, remains underused because it does not generate the same revenue as radiation-heavy scans, surgical referrals, or high-cost diagnostic bundles. And this brings us to the deeper truth behind senior wellness. The best outcomes come not from more checkups, but from smarter, gentler, more targeted checkups combined with lifestyle principles scientifically proven to extend life, such as daily light walking, high-protein nutrition, low-inflammatory foods, hydration habits that improve kidney function, routine vitamin D optimization, morning sunlight exposure to regulate circadian rhythms, stress reduction through breathing exercises, purposeful social interaction to protect mental health, and resistance training to maintain muscle mass, all of which reduce mortality more effectively than any test on this dangerous list. And yet seniors are rarely told this because the healthcare model still operates on a disease-first framework instead of a wellness-first framework, meaning seniors often enter clinics as potential patients instead of whole individuals with unique biological histories, emotional needs, nutritional deficiencies, environmental stressors, and metabolic patterns that cannot be generalized into one-size-fits-all medical screening schedules. And this disconnect is why so many older adults feel overwhelmed, confused, and pressured when doctors order tests, without explaining whether the results will change their treatment plan, improve life expectancy, or simply create more medical noise. And to understand how this harms real people, one only needs to look at the thousands of cases reported by geriatric specialists where seniors lost mobility, confidence, and quality of life after undergoing unnecessary follow-ups triggered by misleading test outcomes, such as the 82-year-old woman who ended up in rehab for months following a lung biopsy, triggered by a harmless nodule, or the 78-year-old man who entered cognitive decline after sedation from an unnecessary colonoscopy, or the 74-year-old who suffered kidney injury from contrast dye during a stent procedure he never needed. And each of these stories shares a common thread. The original test was ordered without evaluating the stability of the person's daily life, their functional independence, their stress capacity, their recovery strength, or their actual symptoms. And This approach contradicts everything we now know about aging biology, which teaches that seniors benefit from minimal interference, low-intensity monitoring, and lifestyle-centric care far more than they benefit from invasive diagnostics. Yet the culture of catch everything early continues to grow. Even though science has repeatedly shown that not all abnormalities become diseases and not all diseases require aggressive detection, once a person reaches their 70s, where the biology of risk shifts dramatically and the body's priority becomes preservation of strength, mobility, cognitive clarity, and immune balance. Not the pursuit of microscopic findings that will never grow, never harm, and never progress in a life-threatening conditions. And if more seniors understood this, they would approach healthcare with greater confidence, asking smarter questions such as, will this result change my treatment plan? Is this test necessary at my age? What are the risks of false positives? What happens if I do nothing? And are there safer alternatives? Questions that empower them to avoid unnecessary suffering while focusing on what truly matters, which is building a lifestyle that protects the heart, strengthens the brain, preserves muscle, stabilizes mood, enhances digestion, boosts immunity, and supports mobility into the 80s, 90s, and beyond. Because longevity is not created in test rooms. It is created in daily routines, in conscious habits, in mindful nutrition, in steady movement, in emotional stability, in adequate sleep, and in the courage to say no to tests that offer more risk than reward. As people advance past the age of 70, a hidden truth unfolds about certain medical tests that once offered reassurance, but now may bring more harm than healing, creating a complicated landscape of senior wellness that is often misunderstood. And in this long and deeply illuminating exploration, we unravel the science, the myths, and the overlooked realities surrounding 5 major health checkups that older adults are frequently encouraged to undergo despite mounting evidence that these screenings, when performed without individualized assessment, can trigger more anxiety, false positives, unnecessary treatments, and even dangerous complications, especially for aging bodies that respond differently to stress, medication, and invasive procedures than they did decades earlier. And while this topic may seem unsettling at first glance, understanding it is one of the most empowering steps any senior or caregiver can take toward building a safer, more thoughtful approach to long-term well-being, because the goal of modern senior health shouldn't be excessive testing, but strategic longevity, lifestyle optimization, metabolic health awareness, and personalized preventive care that strengthens independence rather than overwhelming older adults with medical interventions that no longer add meaningful years to life nor life to years. And as we journey through these concepts, we also weave in new medical research, holistic wellness insights, longevity science developments, senior mobility breakthroughs, anti-inflammation strategies, and cutting-edge geriatric recommendations that reshape how people over 70 should think about their checkups. Because the goal is not simply to identify what to avoid, but to create a new blueprint for smarter senior living that enhances vitality, protects cognitive clarity, stabilizes emotional well-being, and supports physical resilience in a world where many outdated health traditions still linger, even though the medical landscape has dramatically evolved. And this transformation in senior health strategy is driven by a deeper realization that the human body after 70 is profoundly different in muscle density, bone turnover rate, nervous system sensitivity, hormone balance, digestive rhythm, immune responsiveness, and cardiovascular adaptation, which means the screening tests that were beneficial at age 50 or 60 operate under entirely different risk-reward ratios in advanced age. And understanding these ratios is crucial for protecting long-term health without falling into the trap of overtreatment or overscreening that can reduce quality of life, drain energy, and introduce unnecessary fears that do not correlate with improved outcomes. And as we continue to explore this complex reality, it becomes even more evident that seniors must prioritize thoughtful, evidence-based decisions over routine, fear-driven interventions, because each DEXA scan, MRI, stress test, colonoscopy, and full-body CT scan carries unique risks that are amplified with age, including medication side effects, surgical complications. Contrast dye-induced kidney stress, sedation-related cognitive decline, and radiation-induced cellular damage, and yet many. Older adults undergo these tests without fully understanding the probability of harm versus the likelihood of meaningful benefit. And while medical institutions have historically promoted more testing equals more safety, contemporary geriatric research reveals that for adults over 70, a conservative, measured approach to healthcare, coupled with intentional lifestyle practices, produces dramatically better outcomes in terms of physical function, cognitive clarity, cardiovascular stability, bone resilience, emotional balance, and overall longevity, because scientific evidence now consistently shows that lifestyle interventions, such as strength training, balance exercises, cardiovascular activity, proper hydration, anti-inflammatory nutrition, adequate protein intake, sufficient sleep, social engagement, mental stimulation, and micronutrient optimization deliver far more protective benefits against fractures, heart disease, dementia, and other age-related conditions than do routine invasive medical tests, which too often catalyze a cascade of overdiagnosis, overtreatment, unnecessary anxiety, and diminished independence. And moreover, seniors who adopt this preventive lifestyle mindset experience improved resilience to illness, greater recovery capacity, and enhanced day-to-day energy. Whereas those who rely solely on aggressive screening risk exposure to invasive procedures that are frequently unnecessary and can have long-lasting negative impacts, such as digestive complications, cardiac events, cognitive setbacks, physical injury, hospitalizations, or even triggering conditions that mimic disease in otherwise healthy tissues. And these considerations are critically important when evaluating the risk-to-benefit ratio of high-risk checkups like full-body CT scans, which, despite being marketed as elite preventive tools for cancer detection, expose older adults to substantial ionizing radiation, often prompting additional scans, biopsies, and surgical interventions that carry real harm, including up to 5% of cancers in the United States being potentially linked to diagnostic imaging itself, highlighting that the very interventions intended to prevent disease can paradoxically contribute to it. And when we examine the history of these tests alongside current research, including studies in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society, Neurology Today, JAMA Cardiology, and Osteoporosis International, the evidence consistently emphasizes that targeted, symptom-driven testing, combined with a strategic lifestyle focus, yields far superior outcomes than blanket screening protocols, and even the stories of real seniors illustrate this vividly. The retired piano teacher who regained full mobility and avoided fractures through nutrition and resistance training. The engineer whose normal age-related brain changes were misinterpreted as dementia but improved with cognitive exercises and lifestyle adjustments. The retired postman whose false positive stress test led to kidney injury and hospitalization, but no cardiac benefit, and countless others who suffered from unnecessary colonoscopies, sedation complications, or surgical procedures triggered by minor incidental findings, all of which underscore that overtesting is not merely inconvenient. It is actively harmful, a reality that remains hidden from the public, yet is clear in clinical research, and the overarching lesson is that prevention in advanced age must pivot from aggressive diagnostics to functional health preservation, emphasizing habits that maintain muscle mass, cardiovascular efficiency, neurological function, flexibility, balance, emotional resilience, and immunity. While medical testing should be reserved for situations where results meaningfully alter treatment or enhance quality of life, and seniors who embrace this approach benefit from enhanced autonomy, fewer medical complications, lower emotional stress, and a higher probability of maintaining independence and vitality well into their 80s, 90s, and beyond, and by asking critical questions like, will this test change my care plan? And are there safer, less invasive alternatives? Older adults can reclaim agency over their health, avoid unnecessary exposure to invasive procedures, medication side effects, and radiation, and focus instead on evidence-based practices that genuinely promote longevity and life satisfaction. Because true senior wellness is not measured by the number of tests conducted or scans performed, but by the ability to remain active, cognitively sharp, emotionally balanced, socially connected, and physically resilient. And when we internalize this principle, we can finally navigate the confusing landscape of modern medicine with clarity and confidence, choosing only the interventions that are truly necessary, avoiding the traps of overdiagnosis, and embracing a lifestyle-first philosophy that maximizes independence, reduces risk, enhances energy, supports brain health, stabilizes heart function, strengthens bones, optimizes immunity, and ultimately creates a life where aging is not feared but lived with empowerment, intentionality, and informed choice. And this is why understanding the 5 most potentially harmful health checkups after 70, DEXA scans, brain MRIs, cardiac stress tests, colonoscopies, and full-body CT scans, is not merely academic. It is transformative because it allows seniors and their caregivers to avoid unnecessary procedures, reduce exposure to harm, and focus on interventions that genuinely improve life expectancy, quality of life, and functional independence, creating a new paradigm where health decisions are driven by evidence, personal risk assessment, and lifestyle optimization rather than fear, marketing, or outdated routine protocols. And ultimately, this approach ensures that the years beyond 70 are not dominated by hospital visits, invasive procedures, or anxiety over minor incidental findings, but are instead filled with mobility, mental clarity, emotional stability, social engagement, and vitality, proving that in senior health, sometimes less truly is more. And the greatest protective strategy is not the number of scans or tests performed, but the intentional, informed, and evidence-based cultivation of physical, cognitive, and emotional resilience in everyday life.